Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 7 2021 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this past week, it was a great week. In regards to both my against the spread and straight up picks, I have at least 500 or better records in both categories. Something I haven't been able to do since I believe week 3. So I think it's like the first time in a month that I have been able to have winning records or at least 500 records in both my against the spread and straight up picks. So I will gladly take that uh, after the past several weeks, especially against the spread. So this week so far against the spread and straight up, I am 7-6 against the spread, and straight up I am 10-3. That equals up to 54 and 77% respectively. And once again, just for everybody out there, I am taking the Buffalo Bills tonight minus 3.5, the initial line. I know it's moved up to 6, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills minus the points over the Tennessee Titans. And now overall for the year, I am against the spread 42, 50, and 1, and straight up I am now 60 and 33, which equals up to 46 or 45.8 and 65% respectively. So finally, after all the weeks of going down the ladder of my against the spread picks, I'm slowly starting to climb up the against the spread ladder to get to that 500 goal. I still have at least half the season, a little bit more to try to achieve that goal. And after the last two great weeks with double-digit victories, I am well on my pace to getting to my usual average of 65%. And maybe the aspirations of getting into the upper 60s, near 70%, are still available with how great I've been picking the last couple weeks straight up. Though I do have to say a lot of the against the spread picks, a few that I regret. Brian Flores gypped me out of the Dolphins-Jags game because I thought the Dolphins, through most of that game, were playing well. It took a great touchdown pass from Trevor Lawrence to Marvin Jones, who's the best receiver on the Jaguars roster. And by the way, congrats to Marvin Jones for getting a catch, I believe, in 1 or 2 consecutive games. So, pretty impressive accomplishment. Though Brian Flores really dropped the bag with his decision making, the bad challenges I thought in back-to-back sequences, especially the one where he tried to get it the punt off the 1 yard line instead of a touchback, or I think he thought the Jag touched it, and Gene Stegator from CBS Sports had that great line of the index card. Of course, he was the ref that had the great index card line between the Cowboys and Raiders back in 2017. But I digress. But that game really jibbed me. I put too much faith in the Houston Texans. I thought after that great game against Belichick's defense, I thought against the Colts team that wasn't that much better, I thought initially, than the Texans. I thought they'd play a competitive game, and it was 10 points. And it was a 31-3 routing by the Colts. Carson Wentz had his best consistent game as a Colt. Jonathan Taylor had an 83-yard rush, the longest in franchise history. He had 145 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 carries, so over 10 yards a carry. Incredibly impressive. And then the other couple against the spread picks, the Packers-Bears game, that was a 3-point game, pretty much up to the Aaron Rodgers scramble where he got in the end zone, and all the Bears fans giving him the double birds, saying, "I still own you," which is true because he is 22-5 against the Packers all time. He's 11-3 at Soldier Field, and he's, I think, won the last 5 or 6 straight. So, justifiably so. And then the other bad pick, Seahawks Steelers, went down to the wire after a 14-0 lead jumped out by Pittsburgh. The Seahawks came back to go on a 17-3 run to tie the game, and then Geno Smith, as Geno Smith has done the last 2 weeks, in the biggest spots where they need to try to go for a win, he turns it over, and this one was on him. Because last time you could argue Tyler Lockett fell, and it went right to the one Ram defender. TJ Watt that time stripped him clean. Actually, it was quite remarkable seeing the entire Seattle offensive line shift to the right to try to block TJ Watt or go on him, and he wraps all the way around to get Geno, punches the ball out. Boswell gets the easiest overtime field goal of his career, and the Steelers are now 500, and the Seahawks are now 0-1 in the Russ era. Fun little fact about Geno, his last 2 starts came after, I think, the last 2 consecutive start streaks by Eli Manning, started career, and Russell Wilson, 210 and 149 respectively. So Fun little fact for Gino, who's still not a very good quarterback. So those are my little diatribes from last week. Before I get into my picks, we are in the bye season for a lot of NFL teams. And this is the largest week of buys. There are 6 teams on buys this week. So the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are all on bye this week. So Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, the Bills defense, the Cowboys defense, Dak, Zeke, Trevor Lawrence, James Robinson, Justin Herbert, the Chargers defense, Greg Zuerlein, Tyler Bass, the Chargers defense, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Chris Herndon, the Steelers defense, Najee Harris, Big Ben, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, Eric Ebron. If you have any of those players, like I have some in my fantasy league that I'm in, bench them because they will all not be playing this week. This is the largest week of buys in the NFL this year. So for those 6 teams, bench any of those fantasy players on any of those teams because they are not playing football this week. All right, so time for my picks. So we start with this coming Thursday when in a battle of a must-win game for 2 500 teams, when the 3-3 Denver Broncos travel to Cleveland to take on the 3-3 Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Denver Broncos plus 4.5. Then the next game, when the 2-4 Washington football team travels to Green Bay to take on the 5-1 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Green Bay Packers here minus 9.5 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Tennessee to take on the 4-2 or 3-3 Tennessee Titans. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4.5-point favorites this game. I like the Kansas City Chiefs here, minus 4.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-3 Atlanta Falcons travel to Miami, take on the 1-5 Miami Dolphins. The Atlanta Falcons are 2-point favorites in this game. I like Atlanta here in this game, very much so. So give me the Atlanta Falcons here, minus 2, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 New York Jets travel to New England to take on the 2-4 New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are 7-point favorites in this game, giving the New England Patriots here minus 7, and the New England Patriots straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 Carolina Panthers travel to New York to take on the 1-5 New York Giants. The Carolina Panthers are 2.5-point favorites this game. I like Carolina here minus 2.5, and Carolina straight up. Then the next game, and the biggest game of the week, when the 4-2 Cincinnati Bengals travel to Baltimore to take on the 5-1 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 6.5-point favorites this game. Give me the Baltimore Ravens here minus 6.5, and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. The next game, when the 2-4 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Las Vegas to take on the 4-2 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders here minus 3, and the Las Vegas Raiders straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-6 Detroit Lions travel to Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium to take on the 5-1 Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams, and these are the 2 biggest spreads I think I've seen all year, maybe besides the Buffalo one. I have to remember that one. But the LA Rams are 15.5-point favorites in this game. I am going to take the Los Angeles Rams here to win straight up for obvious reasons, but I think that spread for the Lions. I know the Lions were awful, and I'll go more into that. But they are 15.5-point underdogs. Give me the Detroit Lions here, plus 15.5, and give me the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-5 Houston Texans travel to Arizona to take on the 6-0 Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are 17-point favorites in this game. Give me the Arizona Cardinals here. I can't believe I'm doing this in a professional NFL game. Very rare you get the 17-point spread. I think the last time that happened, it was either KC New York last year or the Bills Vikings won 2 years ago, where the Bills won as 17-point underdogs. Give me the Arizona Cardinals here minus 17 and the Arizona Cardinals straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-3 Chicago Bears travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 5-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 13-point favorites in this game. Give me the Chicago Bears here plus 13, but I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers straight up. And then In the Sunday night game, when the 2-4 Indianapolis Colts travel to San Francisco to take on the 2-3 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 4-point favorites in this game. I am going to take the Indianapolis Colts here +4, but I think this game is so evenly matched. I am going to take the Indianapolis Colts +4, but I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers straight up. And then finally, in the Monday night game, when the 3-2 New Orleans Saints travel to Seattle to take on the 2-4 Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the New Orleans Saints here, -3.5, and New Orleans Saints straight up. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. The Cleveland Browns over the Denver Broncos. This is a game to where I am going to take the Cleveland Browns, even if Baker Mayfield plays or not, because I know that in the game where they got absolutely routed by the Arizona Cardinals, 37-13, Kyler was 22 of 30 for 200 yards and 4 great touchdowns, and DeAndre had 55 yards and two touchdowns out of those 4. The Cardinals defense forced 3 Baker Mayfield turnovers. They did not have their left tackle or their right tackle, and Baker looked under the rest a lot of the game. They lost Kareem Hunt to an Achilles injury, and he's been put on the IR. They also lost the Notre Dame linebacker Jermaine Owusu, or some long name that I can't really pronounce correctly, but they lost him to an injury as well. He will be out at least 4 to 6 weeks. And so I know for a lot of people, maybe you're looking at the Broncos going, no, this is great. But Kevin Stefanski said today that Nick Chubb may play. He didn't play yesterday to a calf injury, but he may play on Thursday. And I just feel like with the Browns, with what they have, the Browns just have a little bit more talent than the Broncos. Because after what the Denver Broncos did the first 3 weeks, playing the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets, and they beat all 3 of those teams in decisive and convincing fashion. Over the last 3 weeks, they got decimated, and Bridgewater left the game, but I don't think it would have mattered. They got decisively beaten by Baltimore. They lost a heartbreaker to Pittsburgh off of a Cameron Sutton interception, and then Teddy Bridgewater, for the first time maybe in his career in a very long time, had a 4-turnover game, including 3 interceptions, and I'll give him a pass for the last one because I was just chucking the ball for no reason. And he got sacked at least 3 times from Max Crosby, and the Broncos just looked very awkward, and it was kind of surprising, especially after everything went on with the Raiders. I thought the Broncos would have taken advantage of that and played a bit better. Vic Fangio had some rough moments with challenge flags, but I just feel like after you watch that moment and see how inconsistent the Broncos have been, I just feel like the Browns, they have more talent on defense that they can. Baker should be able to move the ball. If Chubb or Dearness Johnson or the other running back they have, the 4th stringer, they should be able to move the ball effectively enough to win this game in a nail biter. And I'll take Baker Mayfield to outplay Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater may not make that many mistakes, but I feel like Baker, especially on that 62-yard Hail Mary pass, Donovan Peoples-Jones, he'll be able to make one more play, I think, than mistake, and I don't think Teddy will be able to match that in terms of play. Because I feel like the Browns, if Denzel Ward, I think he has a good matchup against Sutton. Tim Patrick, who got the nice 20-plus yard touchdown on the nice shallow that he ran up the field. I think that, Troy Hill, I think he can do a decent job on Tim Patrick. Austin Hooper's a better tight end than Noah Fant. And they lost Albert O on the IR after last week or 2 weeks ago. And I just think also the Browns are at home. Like, out of these 2 teams, the Broncos are in a spot to where they're kind of in a sense where they're overachieving. The Browns are in a sense you could argue they're underachieving. And they really need this win because the Browns are in serious trouble. If you look at the rest of their schedule, they still have 2 games against Pittsburgh, 2 games against Cincinnati, 2 games against Baltimore. And I know there's some other tough. They have Green Bay on the schedule as well. That they have a very interesting schedule coming up, to where they may not even make the playoffs of all the opponents they have to face coming up in there. So they need this win to get above 500 and get prepared to face Pittsburgh next week in a big AFC North battle for both teams. Do I think the Broncos can win this? Absolutely, because again, depending on what the Browns put out on the field, the Broncos could very easily dominate the banged up Cleveland offensive line and Baker not being able to run the ball. The Broncos have Fuller and Surtain. Hopefully Surtain's okay. I think he left the game with an injury, or he left and came back. And they have Darby. And I think Baker against that defense, they could definitely get a turnover or two on him, but I don't think that will happen. I think Baker Mayfield makes one more play at home than Bridgewater can, and Baker makes one, and Baker does not make the mistake that gives the Browns this victory. A very interesting game. I think, honestly, it's a second or third best game of the weekend, in my opinion, just for everything going on. But I like the Browns here. They're at home. Baker outplays Teddy by a bit, and I just trust the Browns staff and talent more than Denver's at this point. So that's why I like the Cleveland Browns here straight up, with the Denver Broncos plus 4.5. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Washington football team. This one to me is fairly simple. The Washington football team is a very bad football team. They defensively are not very good, which is surprising to me. They've given up 29 points, I believe, in their last 5 straight games. I think they only gave up 29 points only 5 times the whole year last year. They really can't get a great pass rush. I remember there was a point in the game when the Chiefs converted 7 consecutive third downs, and that was just stunning to me. But it also was great for the Chiefs because they were just able to grind that clock down to about 3 minutes left, and then they were able to score off the touchdown pass from Mahomes to Demarcus Robinson. But I just look at the Washington offense. They really couldn't, besides the great play to Ricky Seals-Jones, they really couldn't get anything going. Antonio Gibson got shut down. J.D. McKissick was their best receiver yesterday. Taylor Heineke threw the funniest interception. We have the helmet catch, and now we have the helmet interception. I forget the guy's first name, but Wharton, number 98 on the Chiefs, he literally grabbed the ball off the offensive lineman's helmet and got the turnover. And Taylor Heineke, again, I'll kind of laugh. I'll give you credit against Atlanta, but you really think you're better than Ryan Fitzpatrick? You really think you're better than Ryan Fitzpatrick? Make my day with that. You scrub of a quarterback, Taylor Heineke. Know your place, and when Fitzpatrick comes back in a lost season for Washington, he should get that job back. That's just my opinion. Anybody that disagrees, let me know, because I think Fitzpatrick is better than Taylor Heineke. But to get back to the game, I just feel like the Packers, they played, efficient football. Rodgers had 3 total touchdowns. He didn't have another turnover. He's had 12 TDs and 1 interception in his last 5 games after the blowout in week 1. I know Washington hasn't won in Green Bay in a very long time. I think, they play each other sparingly. And I just don't have a lot of confidence in Washington right now as a whole squad. And the Packers have been able to win games at least by 10 points. And Washington's lost by 20 plus. They lost to Kansas City by 10. They lost to New Orleans by 10. So giving the Packers 9.5 with Washington's history against the spread, I feel like the Packers is a very nice game. And I would tell everybody out there, if you're doing any survivor pools, take the Packers this week against Washington if you want to take a underrated team or in a good convincing game. So I think Green Bay just rolls them. The defense isn't great. Rodgers will have a fantastic day. I think the offensive line will hold. David Bakhtiari could come back because it's week 7, and the people on the pup can now come back. And I just don't see Washington really putting up a fight. I think Washington has been it's been unfortunate for them that they've had the schedule that they've had, because you could argue they had to play Buffalo, they had to play the Chargers, they had to play the Chiefs, they had to play the Packers, and those are 4 of the best teams in the conference. And Washington against the Giants, who they beat, Atlanta, and then that once they play their division or once they put more effective competition, they may look better. But at this point, I don't really think that's the case. But we'll see. But that's why I have the Green Bay Packers here minus 9.5 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where I just think with the Titans, I really haven't been that impressed with them. They've gone through 5 games and they beat the Colts, their division rival, in a 9-point game. They beat the Seahawks and that last second field goal by Randy Bullock. Which, now today, if you're going to look at the Seahawks, are not a very good team, even when Russell was there. And you look at Tannehill, he's not playing up to the level he was last year, but he's playing okay. Derrick Henry leading the league in rushing, carrying this team on his back. And I do think that should be the impact for this Titans team, who has history of playing Kansas City. Back in their Super Bowl season, they were the last team to beat the Chiefs off the Ryan Tannehill, I believe, Adam Humphries touchdown, which won them the game in that 38-35 stunner where the field goal was blocked back in 2019, back in Week 10. So the Titans have this experience, and they played the Chiefs, the last couple times, in a tough way, or they've been able to get 10-point leads. But I just feel like this Titans team is different. After they lost to the Jets, I really can't take them seriously. Could the Titans win this game? Sure. I feel like the Titans, they have, the running game. They have 2 phenomenal receivers. They have an okay tight end. And Patrick Mahomes has already thrown 8 interceptions. His career high is 12 back in his MVP year in 2018. And I think he's very much on pace for that with the consistency of turnovers. Because this Chiefs team the last couple of years, has not been known to turn over the ball as frequently. They've given up another 3 turnovers, I believe, in back-to-back games, or in 3 of the 5 games. They gave up at least 3 turnovers. I'm sorry, in 3 of the 6 games they played, they've given up at least 3 turnovers, which is very un-Kansas City-like. And I feel like with the Titans that they could, with how Mahomes has to, make some improvisation to play. I do also want to wish number 88, Josh. He made the great catch on the sideline, number 88 for the Chiefs. He tore his Achilles later in the game. Wish nothing but the best for him for the rest of the year because obviously he's out. And I do want to say Travis Kelce was holding his wrist, I believe, during the end of the game. So that is something to look out for. And also Darrell Williams did an okay job. He had 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I feel like the Titans should be able to limit that a bit. But at the end of the day, it's Mahomes versus Tannehill. And this Chiefs team, they have some confidence going against Washington. Obviously, Tannehill in that offense is much better than Washington's, but I'll take Mahomes in this matchup because I feel like the Titans, their defense isn't very, very much better than the Chiefs. And in that kind of way, I'll take Mahomes and his offense, regardless of what weapons they have, in a shootout over Tannehill and his. Unless Derrick Henry goes for about $140 or $150, which could happen, and the Titans win, but I don't see that happen. But it should be a very interesting game. For the Chiefs, this is maybe a defining season, game. Because if they lose to them, then basically the Chiefs, they're going to make the playoffs because I think the rest of the AFC is not very good. But their playoff aspirations, they could go from being a Super Bowl contender to arguably, depending on who they play, a divisional round loser or even a one and done if they lose to the Titans. If you look at their schedule and how they played through the first 7 weeks if they lose. So that's why I like the Kansas City Chiefs here, -4.5. The Kansas City Chiefs straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Miami Dolphins. This is one to where I am taking the Atlanta Falcons because the Miami Dolphins are not a very good football team, and Brian Flores is a fraud of a head coach and should be fired at the end of this year. And I'm happy that he is under the Dolphins because he has a owner in Stephen Ross who agrees with my philosophy. You basically know how good a coach is after 3 seasons. And for Brian Flores to win a grand total of 16 games in 3 years, that's unacceptable. This man got outcoached by Urban Meyer. He got outcoached by the college coach that's been under a bunch of crap for the last, week or 2 or the whole year. Looking at everybody, is he Steve Spurrier? Is he another Steve Spurrier type of college coach? And he got outcoached by him bad. It was brutal to see. But, I'm not saying Urban didn't have his faults too. He did. But to literally see the challenge mistakes, to see the crazy decision to go, well, we have 5 seconds. Let's wait for the Hail Mary. And then Trevor Lawrence throws a 10-yard slant to Chenault to get the first down and gives Matthew Wright a 53-yard field goal to win. Fun fact for the Jags, too, by the way. 2 things. 1, the Jags had not made a field goal up to that point yesterday. They were 0 for 5. They made 3 field goals in that game, including 2 50-plus yarder ones. And kudos to Matthew Wright, too, because that 52-yarder he made to tie the game literally curved in. He bent it like Beckham, as they were over in London, and got it in. And also for a Jags fan, for a quick aside, you should really want to stay in London. You are the team that's played the most in London, and you've won 8 games. You played 8 games, you've won 4. That's a much better percentage than you've had over the last several years since Shad Khan's taken over. So maybe stay over in London, but I digress. But and he went for the dumb decision to run at a shotgun and 4th and 1 at the 50. He should have done a QB sneak or an end around or give the ball to Tua and throw a quick slant or a screen or a design run. Brian Flores, you are a fraud, sir. At the end of the year, you will gladly get your walking papers. You're another Belichick disciple that failed miserably, and that man does not deserve to be a head coach in the National Football League ever again. He could be a coordinator. He can go back to Belichick or whatever, but he never deserves to be a head coach ever again. But I think that's why I have to get back to the game. I'm taking the Falcons here because I can't trust the Dolphins personnel, the coaching staff. They did not have Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, which was massive. I mean, I'm not going to take that away, but Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, Devontae Parker didn't play, so all those injuries are big. Will Fuller's already back on the IR with another thumb injury. By the way, most overpaid and useless $10 million any team has ever spent in free agency goes to the Miami Dolphins for paying Will Fuller. I know he's been through a lot and he had some personal issues, which I understand. But for the fact that he played one game out of 5 and you're paying him $10 million for that limited amount of production, that really shows how laughable Stephen Ross, Chris Greer, and Flores are as a coaching staff. But I'm going to take Atlanta here. I know it's weird, Atlanta. It's always a kind of a weird pick, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if the Miami Dolphins won this game. But I just think the Falcons are a bit better coached. They have a more solid, effective defense. Calvin Ridley is coming back. And Matt Ryan is playing just much more consistent and solid football over the last 2 weeks. I think he's had 7 TDs, or like 7 or 8 TDs and no interceptions or 1 pick. He's playing, good football. And I just can't trust the Dolphins in this spot with the amount of injuries, the coaching staff mismatch, the kickers are about to push. And I just think the Falcons, they've been more consistent, a little more effective compared to the Dolphins, who, for the most part, have at least 2 clunkers. And they were literally a fumble and a botched 4th down from splitting a couple, or they were literally a fumble recovery away from being an 0-6 football team. And I'm going to take the Falcons because they've been more consistent, and I can't trust the Dolphins staff in a close game. So that's why I like the Atlanta Falcons here, -2, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the New York Jets. I am taking the New England Patriots here because they played in the most insane game of the entire weekend against the Cowboys, back and forth. Mac Jones had 215 yards, 2 TDs, an interception. Again, he had his longest touchdown of his career, a 75-yard touchdown pass to Kendrick Bourne on a blown coverage by DeMonte Casey and Trayvon Diggs combined. I'll blame KZ a bit more because KZ should have been able to at least knock the ball down or pick the ball off from Mac, and instead of giving up the seam route to take the 3-point lead. And it's interesting because for the first time since 1993, the Patriots have lost all 4 of their home games. They are 0-4 at home. And I just look at the Patriots, and they're not the same. The secondary was getting shredded by the Dallas offense. Cedric Wilson, CeeDee Lamb had a phenomenal game. He led all receivers. They did a good job stopping Zeke. I will say that. Zeke had about 60s odd some yards. And they got a couple turnovers, and they got the big turnover on they got 2 big turnovers. The one 4th and goal line fumble, and then the interception by Kyle Duggar off the tip ball from Dak. So kudos to the Pats there. But at the end of the day, I just felt like the Pats defensively just could not stop Dak in that offense. Where the Jets, they're coming off a bye, and they didn't play that well against the Falcons. They were down 17-0 at the half. Zach Wilson's the only rookie quarterback in the league that's thrown a turnover or has thrown a pick in every one of the games that he's played. And this is a team in the Jets that just in week 2, just 5 weeks ago, got Zach Wilson turning the ball over 4 times at a 25-6 thrashing. And from what I've seen out of the Pats have been able to win. Their only 2 wins were against rookie quarterbacks, Davis Mills and Zach. And I just feel like, again, that for the Patriots, they have just proven against the top competition that I do not think that you'll be able to see against or maybe not this year for the Cowboys exactly, but I feel like for the Patriots, they've shown enough effort that with the Jets that I just haven't seen. Like, I know the Jets have a win too. They beat the Titans in a fluky way. But I'm taking the Pats here. They're at home. I can't remember the last time the Jets went into New England and beat them in the regular season. But you have to go back to back in 06. Because I can't remember the last time the Jets went into New England and won for them. And I just think, again, Belichick's record, Belichick's scheme, and Belichick's consistency over the last several weeks has been more impressive than the Jets. And I think the Pats finally get off the home losing schneid and get their first victory in New England against the lowly New York Jets. And also, by the way, Bill Belichick gave up over 500. He gave his most yards as a defensive coordinator or head coach in his entire career. It was over 557 or 550 plus yards against the Cowboys. I do not think that will be a problem against this Jets offense this coming week. Should be an interesting game because I feel like the Jets, they have a shot. Because I think, the Jets have played a bit better over the last couple of weeks. They've been more competitive. In 7 points, they could push it at the very least if you look at their last game. But I did this last year. It was week 7. It was week 17, the end of the year. The Jets, after coming off 2 straight wins, played New England. I thought the Jets could have at least covered and won, just because the Pats were just not very good and Cam was up and down. The Patriots got a nice decisive win. Kind of feel like I'm not going to make that mistake this year. I'll take the Patriots to win in a typical Patriots-Jets game. Patriots-Jets, the Jets make a decent game out of it for about a quarter and a half to 2.5 quarters, and the Pats, by the end, just outplay them with turnovers, more disciplined football, and they at least get another 2 turnovers on Zach Wilson. So that's all I like the New England Patriots here, -7, and the New England Patriots straight up. The next game, the Carolina Panthers over the New York Giants. This one, I have to take the Carolina Panthers because the New York Giants are one of the worst teams in the league. In fact, you could argue they are the 3rd worst team in the league behind the Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans. And here's the thing, the Carolina Panthers are not that much better either. Sam Darnold went 17 of 41 for 220 yards. His first throw of the game in Rashad Breeland's 100th game was an interception. And the rest of the game, he had 100 yards going into the 4th quarter against the Vikings defense. The Vikings defense is a decent defense, but it's not the Cardinals. It's not the Rams. And Sam Darnold is looking more and more like the Jets Sam Darnold that the Panthers may have overpaid and may have hitched their wagon to the wrong guy. We're definitely Deshaun Watson. Those talks are where they were trying to, we're not going to get Deshaun Watson. Now you really might have to consider it. But that's why, I'm taking the Panthers here, just because the Giants were so bad. They are 9-26 at home since 2017 over the last 5 years. That's the worst home record in all the NFL. Daniel Jones had 3 more turnovers. He had 3 picks and a fumble. They really couldn't get anything going. They were getting stifled. They were going for QB sneaks late in the game when the game was out of hand. Stafford had a 4-touchdown game. He looked solid and consistent and pretty much downright, like an MVP or top candidate that he could be. Cooper Kupp had a great catch. Darrell Henderson had 2 nice rushing touchdowns. And to quote Dan Orlovsky, Timmy Toughnuts over there, Joe Judge, does not have a very long judging left. I feel like he is on the verge, and I'm being honest, he should be a mid-season firing because I think this team is that bad. I think Dave Gettleman needs to get fired, and basically every contract except maybe Leonard Williams and Logan Ryan and maybe Leonard and Logan, every other contract needs to be put up or traded or something because this team needs a complete rebuild. If this was a 6 or 7 point game, I might have taken the Giants to at least cover because I'm not really sold on the Panthers either. But the Giants played so bad that even with the Panthers as inconsistent as they've been over the last 3 weeks, and as that bad as Sam Darnold's played, I have to take the Panthers because at least Sam looks more competent and at least a little more consistent, and he led a 99-yard or 98-yard drive, including having a great 2 big 4th down conversions to Ian Thomas and DJ Moore. And I just have to go back to the last time as well when the Giants played the Jets, I think, in 2019. Sam Darnold won that one too. So that was the other reasoning too. So should be an interesting game. I think the Panthers should be able to hold on. If they lose this one, then the Panthers are in serious trouble because the Giants are, like I said, the 30th ranked team in the whole league. In my opinion, you could argue, And I think the Panthers, with their defense alone, and if Sam Darnold just does not keep turning it over, they should be able to win this game just based off talent and just schematics and coaching, by all means. So that's why I like the Carolina Panthers here, -2.5. The Carolina Panthers straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a game to where I am taking the Baltimore Ravens to win this football game because the Baltimore Ravens put out the most surprising outcome of the entire weekend. Not so much that they won, but it was in the fashion that they did it. If I were to tell you that the Los Angeles Chargers, who had one of the most high-powered, most talented offenses, would be held to a little over 200 yards and only held to 6 points, the fewest yards and the fewest amount of points in the Justin Herbert 21-game era, and it was very short, I would have, you would have laughed. But that's exactly what happened. And here's the craziest thing. The offense didn't do that much. Or, well, the running game. The running game led the way. Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, Latavius Murray, who ended up leaving the game with an injury. They all ran for about $160. Lamar did his thing. Lamar only threw for 119 yards and a touchdown, and he had 2 picks. The second one, I'm not really going to blame him, but that first one, the Kaiser White, he literally threw it right to Kaiser in the middle of the field. And that was after Deshaun Elliott had a great interception on Jared Cook when he took the ball to Jared Cook's hands. And for the Ravens, though, but that's a statement victory that I do not think the Los Angeles Chargers are that bad, and I do not think so much so the Baltimore Ravens are that great because, again, we've had the 66-yard field goal and 19-point comeback against two teams that were combined at this point 2-10. So just to put that in perspective. But at least what that shows me is that if we play this team again, we should be able to at least compete with them. Because the Chargers, it's very much like what happened against the Chargers back in 2018. We beat them in a competitive game with Lamar's rookie year. We beat them. We all felt confident going into the playoff game against them, and they figured them out. And I know Lamar's completely evolved and a much better pure quarterback now, but I would just say for the Ravens, let's kind of, take this next one. I love what Harbaugh said. It doesn't prove that much. It's a great dominant win. It moves all out of power rankings. It puts us in a very high, near elite #1 level, but it's only one game. And we're playing a Bengals team right now that is playing a lot better than anybody really expected. I don't think anybody expected the Bengals to be at 4-2 at this point, playing as efficient as they've been. They absolutely routed the Detroit Lions in a 34-11 game. It really wasn't even that close. Jared Goff looked lifeless, hapless. And Joe Burrow had another 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase got caught another touchdown. He's my offensive rookie of the year. There's really no other offensive player that you could really put up with Jamar's numbers and how he's contributing to the team. Joe Mixon had a great 40-yard touchdown. The running back Evans, who ran up the sideline, had a great 24-yard touchdown. And the Bengals, they are a team that it's a division rival, but this isn't like last year or the last couple years. Or this wasn't like last year when we played them and they had the backup in the second game and Joe Burrow looked like an absolute clueless rookie the first time we played him in Baltimore. This is a different Bengals team, and this is going to be a competitive game. I just think with the Ravens, we should be hopefully getting some of our offensive linemen back. Hopefully Sammy Watkins comes back. And I just really like how our defense can match up against the Bengals receiving core. I feel like our corners are better than their receivers. Chase and Humphrey is going to be the interesting matchup. That's about a push. I give Humphrey a slight edge, but Chase will give him some run. But I think Tyler Boyd with some of our other corners and Auden Tate and even CJ Uzuma, I feel good with our safeties and our other corners that they can play decently against that Bengals receiving core. I think Joe Mixon, who's dealing with an ankle injury, will not be able to have as big of a day as he's had in the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to get nicked up a bit, and he's not going to be able to nearly run as effectively. And I think the Ravens, just how we've been rolling, the confidence we have, is going to say even if the Bengals get into a 10-point lead, we're not going to flinch. I think Lamar can definitely throw on that Bengals secondary. Rodgers definitely showed that with Devontae Adams. I know we don't have nearly any receivers as good as Devontae Adams, but you've seen moments to where with the Bengals that, the Vikings were able to get some yardage. And Joe Burrow, in his games, here's the key thing. I think we get 2 or more turnovers on Joe Burrow. If we get those 2 turnovers by any way, we win the game because that's how Joe's lost his 2 games. He had 3 straight interceptions against the Bears, and he had 2 interceptions against the Packers, the last one being costly, in the loss against the Packers. And he did throw one against the Lions to the guy that picked off Fields the other week before. His name starts with an O, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. This should be a great game, but the Ravens are at home. We have a more consistent running threat, and I just feel like, again, the Ravens, they are going to be up for this game because they know that the Bengals are right on our heels for the division, and I feel like the Ravens, with that division motivation, understanding how big a 6-1 start is going into the bye before we have the Vikings at home, they get this win at least by a touchdown. Should be a great game, but I'm going to take the Ravens. More complete team, better talent, and just a little bit more experience in this moment in big expectation games compared to the Bengals. So that's like the Baltimore Ravens are -6.5, and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. The next game, the Las Vegas Raiders over the Philadelphia Eagles. I am taking the Las Vegas Raiders here to win this game because I looked at the Philadelphia Eagles, and they don't really like to run the football. They only gave Miles Sanders 1 rush and 1 pass and 1 catch in the first half of their game. Ari Melva from My Sports Update, a great Twitter follower if anybody wants to follow him. He's a great sports insider that has a lot of information. He put up all the first halves that Miles Sanders had running the football, and it's abysmal. I think the highest amount of touches he's had in any of the first halves of any game is 9. And Jalen did not look that accurate throwing the football. He really kind of he kind of really kept them in the game with his legs. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Reagor could not catch a cold. He could not catch air. He's not a very good wide receiver. Wes Watkins is their second best wide receiver, a 6th-round pick from the year before. And I just look at the Eagles and go, like, they have some fight, but it's just awkward. They don't really have an identity. Nick Sirianni admitted that on Friday in his press conference after the game. And I just feel like for the Raiders, like, after playing Denver, after all the stuff that happened with John Gruden and emails and the resignation and all the talking and, what it meant for the Raiders and Mark Davis, for them to play as well as they did, he did 2 touchdowns. He had 7 completions, 20-plus yards. Kenyon Drake had his first 2 touchdowns as a Raider. Max Crosby, like I said earlier, had 3 sacks. They got 4 turnovers on Bridgewater. And it was just a very nice and complete game. I feel like this is not like what happened when the Raiders lost to the Chargers and then they had the Bears at home, because that was when I was talking to you guys last. That was on Monday. That was after the first email from Gruden came out, and they came out flat the day after. They now have some confidence that Gruden thing is behind them now. Rich Versace, I would say this, with that effort and how they played, I would seriously consider giving him a genuine opportunity to keep this job long term. He's been a coach in the league for over 30 years. He was on the Tampa staff with Gruden back in 2002 when he won the Super Bowl. So this is a guy that's been around the league. He's been around these players for years, and he seems like he has a good pulse and a good connection with the squad. And if he can continue to win games, get the Raiders into the playoffs, be competitive, I'd give Rich the first opportunity to take off the interim tag off head coach and give him the first crack at being the permanent head coach moving forward. I'm going to take the Raiders here just because I feel like, again, the Raiders looked motivated. They looked more crisp. Derek Carr is better than Hurts. I feel like the Raiders defense can get the Jalen against that Eagles offensive line, though they are getting Lane Johnson back, who took off the last 3 games due to mental health reasons. He put that in a statement earlier today. Do I think the Eagles have a shot? Maybe. I think Jalen, he does cause a problem. And I think that for the Raiders secondary, you have to deal with Steven Nelson and Darius Slay, and you have Rodney McLeod in the middle with safety. But the problem for the Eagles is their linebackers are not very good. Their best one is Alex Singleton, and you got Darren Waller and Henry Ruggs in the slot, and I just feel like that is going to be a very tough matchup for the Eagles linebackers and all night, all afternoon long. And I just have to trust that the Raiders will, with their defense and the motivation of that home crowd, being back at home after all this, getting cheered on, and the confidence of going, beating a decent Denver team, we thought, they get the win in a very nice way. So that's why I like the Las Vegas Raiders here, -3, and the Las Vegas Raiders straight up. The next 2 games, these 2 are going to be about 10 seconds each. The Los Angeles Rams over the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the only winless team in the league. That's all I have to say. Like, anybody that didn't take the Rams last week against the Giants, and I'll just spoil this for next week, they play the Texans too. If anybody out there playing Survivor has the Rams left, and if you want to just wait for the Rams, like take the Rams over the next 2 weeks against two of the worst teams in the league, because that's what the Rams fortunately get. This game is not even going to be a contest. It's Stafford getting the host's former team. The Lions look lifeless basically all that game, and I feel like the Rams, they, again, this was an easy part of their schedule. They get the roll, and yeah, that's it. Like, there's nothing really I could talk about here that's really going to make a lot of fun competitive sense. Dan Campbell's job is on the line because that team looked like it quit yesterday after the first 5 games where they literally could have had 2 wins and they were 25 yards from a comeback and they led the Packers in the first half of game 2. That was the first time I'd seen all year the Lions look like their record. That was pathetic, inexcusable, and Dan Campbell is not getting to these guys. And getting to Jared Goff, who looks, half stoned and looks like he really doesn't care. And he had to call him out for that. I don't think that's going to work. And the Rams, I just think, put a absolute butt-kicking down. They're going to put a boot in the Lions' tail. Or in the Lions' tail in terms of this game. The only reason why I am taking the Lions plus 15.5 is just because of those moments I said about the Lions. Is that this is a motivation game for Jared Goff. Maybe Jared Goff, with Brad Holmes going back to the stadium and back to the place where they just were back in January earlier this year, maybe they're motivated. Maybe he's motivated to play well enough to cover 2 scores. He has 15.5 points to play with, and the Lions, I just feel like in this kind of game, they'll be motivated. Maybe they get, they hear Dan Campbell and they play a decent game. And it's 50, and it's the Lions, and they've had those moments to where they've had those moments to where they've been in close games. Hopefully, with the Goff and Campbell motivation combined, they come together and get a win. Or they come together and they at least cover. I think the Rams easily win this game, but yeah. So that's why I like the Los Angeles Rams here to win straight up with the Detroit Lions plus 15.5. The next game, the Arizona Cardinals over the Houston Texans. Arizona's the best team in the league. Houston's the worst. Arizona's at least won 3 games by 17 or more points. They've won 4 of their 6 games by they've won 4 of their 6 games by double digits. And the Texans already have gotten blown out by the Bills. They've already got blown out by the Colts. And they got decisively beaten by the Panthers. And I just feel like, with all that being said, that 17 points, at the very least, they'll get a push. Because they beat the Browns by 21. By 23. They beat the Rams by 17. They beat the Titans by almost 20 plus. And so I feel incredibly confident with the Texans, how bad they've been, the games they played against the Bills, and the games they played against the Colts, and the game they played against the Panthers, that this team is going to get absolutely destroyed once again. Good luck to Houston. Hopefully Tyrod can come back and you can win another game. But if Davis Mills, who I put too much faith in last week against a much inferior Colts team, if they look that bad against the Colts, if Chandler Jones come back, Zach Allen, and all those guys come back, look out for Houston. This might be the ugliest game of the whole weekend. So good luck for Houston. So that's why I like Arizona here, minus 17, and Arizona straight up. The next game, we only got 3 left, everybody. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Chicago Bears. This is one to where the Bucs, they've been able to kind of roll through ever since their Week 3 game. They had the tough game against New England in a 56-yard field goal miss. They blew up the Dolphins. And they played the Eagles pretty much in a decisive game most of the way through, up to that 4th quarter with some of the questionable decision-making by Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich going on a 4th down. But Tom Brady at the end, they got the really weak penalty by the Eagle defender Avery, which was a unsportsmanlike conduct and a taunting penalty, which was 15 extra yards, which basically iced the game for the Bucs. And Brady played well. He had a 200-plus yard or 200-plus attempt interception streak snapped by Avonte Maddox. And then Epps had a questionable one, and then he dropped it, but it was ruled inconclusive. And I like the Bucs in this game because I feel like the Bears, they had played better under Justin Fields, and Justin Fields has had moments where he's been able to make some nice runs. Khalil Herbert played really well. I thought Darryl Mooney had a couple nice catches. But at the end of the day, Fields threw a horrible interception at the end of the game. I believe it was to Amos. And even though he's going up against the Bucs secondary, which is ravaged by injuries, Sean Murphy Bunting, Carlton Davis, Richard Sherman, who they picked up, all have these hamstring injuries. Antoine Winfield, I think, came back, but he was coming off concussion. This Bucs secondary is not very good. I just don't think with the Bears' offense, besides Robinson and Mooney, they really don't have any receiving threats to worry about. And I just think defensively, they're going to be motivated too. This was week 5 last year, the classic 4-finger game. Everybody remembers. Brady and them remember that. And Devin White said that after the game in Philadelphia. They remember that. And I think they're going to take it out on this Bears team that is going to play, I think, better than people think against Tampa, just because I think Fields is still kind of raw and they really don't know. And I think if Damian and Khalil Herbert, they can at least run the ball decently. Though I think that'll be the challenge because the Bucs have the best rushing defense in the entire league. But I will take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here to win straight up because I feel like the Bucs are just clearly better run defense, much better offensively, and I think the Bucs offensive line holds up against the Bears pass rush. But I think the Bears at plus 13, that is way too many points. I think the Bears under Fields have played better, and they have been able to at least win, and they cover a 10-point, spread against the Packers, and I think the Bucs are better than the Packers, but not by much. So I think 13, I'll give the Bears the points, but Tampa wins in a pretty easy game. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here to win straight up at Chicago Bears plus 13. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Indianapolis Colts. This one is where I am going to take Jimmy Garoppolo over Carson Wentz. And they're at home. Literally the only 2 reasons. I think this game, the Colts could win. The Colts have played very solid football the last 2 weeks on Monday Night Football and against the Texans. And I can't really trust the Niners. They have a bunch of injuries. George Kittle is going to be out for at least another 2 games. Raheem Mostert's out for the year. The secondary's banged up. They really don't have any great secondary help. They have Nick Bosa and Armstead as their pass rushers. Dee Ford looks non-existent. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Jimmy and Debo to literally carry this offense with Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell running back over what the Colts have on their offense. And also the other thing, too, I'm taking the Niners because in the game, T.Y. Hilton, who was coming off a neck injury that made him miss the first 5 games, came back, and he automatically injured his quad after getting another great game against the Texans. He has almost 2,000 yards in 19 career games against the Houston Texans, amazingly. And then Paris Campbell, who caught a big 50-plus yard touchdown from Carson Wentz, he injured his foot and left the game. So if those 2 guys can't play, that's 2 fewer weapons for the Niners secondary to worry about. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to trust that Jimmy Garoppolo, who looks unhindered, outplays Carson Wentz by a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts won. Look, Carson Wentz has played well the last couple weeks. They have some stride, and they're in a much easier position to where they are still literally fighting for the division. If my predictions come true, by the end of this week, if they win, it is a tie for first place in the AFC South, where the Niners, they are basically in the hole with the Seahawks. Fortunately for them, they have their quarterback back yet. Russ still has to wait 2 more weeks, or 3 weeks with their bye. But I'm going to take the Niners. Jimmy's better than Carson in this spot. The Colts' injuries on the receiving core and the offensive line are going to hurt them against the Niners' pass rush. And Jimmy makes one more play, and Carson makes one more mistake that gives the Niners this game. But I'm going to take the Colts here plus 4. I'm going to hedge because I really don't know, and I think it could be a 3-point win. These 2 teams are about that even. So that's why I like the San Francisco 49ers here straight up at the Indianapolis Colts plus 4. And finally, in the Monday Night Football game, the New Orleans Saints over the Seattle Seahawks. A couple things here. New Orleans, every odd week, they've won. Every even week, they've had a bye or lost. It's week 7. It's an odd week. Seattle is 0-2 at home. They are 2-4, but 0-2 at home. They lost to the Titans and they lost to the Rams, and now they're getting their 3rd home game against the Saints team. Back in week 3 of 2019, Russell Wilson and them lost to Bridgewater and them. in that 28-21 game, but it was a weird comeback at the end. I think Russ scored a touchdown with like 3 seconds left. It was a garbage time touchdown, which made it a 6-point game. But again, and at the end of the day, what I know about the Seahawks is this. They played a good game, and Geno played well. But if you notice, at both ends of the last 2 games that Geno was asked upon, not really much the first one, but Geno turned the ball over that caused the game to end and the Seahawks to lose. I'm going to say this. Geno outdoes Jameis for mistakes. The Seahawks really can't get that many turnovers themselves. And I think Jameis, with the weapons he has against this horrible Seahawks defense, with the weapons he has and the arm talent he has, he beats the Seahawks in an interesting shootout. And I think Geno outdoes Jameis in mistakes. And the Saints get their 2nd straight win on an odd week, go to 4-2, and the Seahawks drop to 0-3 at home, something I don't think Pete Carroll has done maybe ever, but since in a very long time for Seattle. Very interesting game. I feel like the Saints have a little bit of a leeway. The Seahawks do not. They need this win desperately because they are literally, I think right now, the 14th seed in the NFC. So, the 14th best team. So they're nowhere near in that spot. They need this win to try to contend, to try to stay afloat in the NFC playoff wild card picture. I don't think they get it. I think Jameis and them, they're rested. They've been there before, and the Seahawks just without Russell Wilson, I can't trust it. Maybe, and depending on how Geno does, maybe Jacksonville could beat him when they come in after next week because Jacksonville's coming off a bye. That's who Seattle plays next. I'll need to see how Geno does, and if he can win, that'll change everything. But give me the Saints here. Jameis outplays Geno, and the Saints win to get to 4-2. Again, odd and even week. Just keep that in mind. If it's an odd week, take the Saints. If it's an even week, do not. Sounds like New Orleans Saints here, -3.5, and New Orleans Saints straight up. So that is it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Check out people like Andrew Warren, Half Moon's Picks. You have Keith Bailey. You have Bridgewater's Finest. You have people like Fire and Brim Sports that I have on my channel. And please check out somebody that I've been watching. I don't know if he watches, but please check out Philly Take with RB. He is a very good, if you're a Philadelphia fan, he is a very good content creator. I've watched a lot of his stuff, and maybe he watches. I'm not trying to. I'm just giving him some peace and love. Please check out Philly Take with RB if you're a Philadelphia fan. Any takes from him. He also have he is a great content creator. And that's it. So until next time for Week 8, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everybody, so long.